Hello and welcome to E-commerce Advice, brought to you by Malekso and presented to you by myself, Peter Spinda. Over the coming months, I'm going to be creating a whole heap of videos, all to do with the topic of e-commerce or digital commerce business. I'm going to tackle different sort of topics, going to give you advice, tips, tricks, take you through some case studies, show you how I've succeeded and also failed over the years, and really wanting to arm you with the most up-to-date, relevant knowledge so that you can power through with your e-commerce business. Before we get to these sort of in-depth topical discussions, I wanted to discuss with you something really fundamental but very, very important. And that's the question of, well, what is an e-commerce or digital commerce business? Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why on earth do we need to discuss this? Isn't it clear? Isn't it logical? Well, the answer to that is yes and no. A lot of people still have this thinking, still have this perception that e-commerce is all about buying a product online, paying for the product, and having it delivered through to you. And that to them is e-commerce. And in fact, a lot of people, if you go out there into the community and you ask them, what is e-commerce? That's the sort of definition that they're going to give you. While that definition is partially correct, it actually doesn't cover and it actually misses a whole scope of e-commerce potential that exists out there that a lot of people don't actually know about. In the 90s, I'd have to say the mid to late 90s, e-commerce really started growing in the Australian marketplace and certainly was embraced by a lot of retail operations. So e-commerce back in those days really focused on selling this pen to you and delivering that pen through to you using a business to consumer mentality or model, which is really the traditional retail model. Technology and customer mindset and perceptions have changed, however. So let's get into this topic and let's talk about, well, what is an e-commerce business? In a nutshell, an e-commerce business is an operation or is a business that allows its customers, whoever those customers might be, and that could be the individual or the company or the business customer, to digitally transact with that organization. And the pathway in terms of e-commerce is in both directions. Traditional business to consumer, so if we're talking bricks and mortar, in most instances has been built on a unidirectional business to consumer flow. In e-commerce, we flow from business to consumer and we also flow back from consumer back to the business. I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of how these sort of digital flows work, but I will sort of explain this in a little bit more detail in a moment. So, in a nutshell, a digital commerce, e-commerce business helps their customers transact with that business using a digital tool. Now, traditionally, the digital tool was your website. Technology has evolved, whether it be a code base, whether it be the actual hardware itself. And so now we have got mobile phones that we can use to transact with. We have got other sort of hardware technological tools that we can use to engage with and transact with a business in mind. So that's why when I say e-commerce is a digital transaction, I don't actually mean a website transaction because it doesn't have to be through a website. In fact, smart technology is going all over the place. And I've just seen an ad for a Samsung fridge the other day where this technology is already built in itself. So it doesn't actually mean websites, necessarily a website. So at its core, e-commerce was built really to meet this business to consumer retail operation. Now, before I get into the other models, I wanted to explain something and make something really clear here. I want to focus on this word here, transact. When I say that an e-commerce business allows its customer, whoever the customer is, to transact with that organization, I don't actually mean that money has to be exchanged. So in a traditional business, there are models where money gets exchanged. immediately. So I buy a product in a store, I pay for the money on I pay for the product and I walk out. But that isn't always the case. You don't always have this exchangement of money straight away. And so this also applies to the e-commerce business. Money doesn't have to be exchanged immediately in an e-commerce operation. If we're looking at the business to consumer model, yes, most of the time money is exchanged. However, B2C is only one model. So let's now talk about another popular model called B2B. And B2B stands for business to business. So these sort of transactions usually occur between one business organization and another business organization, often because one organization is a manufacturer, an importer, or an exporter, and their customer is a business organization that uses those products either as part of their manufacturing process or as part of a rebranding, or maybe even just a reselling strategy. So the business here on the left-hand side might be a manufacturer of pens. The business on the other side might be a reseller of pens, whoever that customer is, whoever that reseller is. So that's a B2B model. Now in the B2B model, the business to business model, oftentimes money isn't exchanged straight away. You might have a 7-day payment terms, you might have 30-day payment terms, 90-day payment terms, whatever you've arranged or whatever that arrangement is between the two entities. Now, technology has come a long way, as I said before, and it is this technological change that has enabled the e-commerce business to actually expand into the B2B world. So e-commerce is no longer the realm of direct to consumer, but it also the realm of businesses transacting with other businesses. And in fact, the technology is so clever that this whole money having to be exchanged factor doesn't actually have to be in the picture. So we can set up systems where a business customer logs into the portal of a manufacturing supplier, for example, they place their order, and the order might be to generate a quote, the order might be a fixed order, whatever it is in terms of an order. And when they go to check out, they don't actually check out per se. The order goes through to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer fulfills the order using their standard processes. But that process also then triggers the payment term processes from a digital point of view. And what I mean by that is you log into the portal, you place your order, the data then could flow into Xero MYOB as an example, where the invoice is automatically generated, triggering the pattern of invoice release, invoice follow-up, etc., etc. So an e-commerce business can talk to the consumer, you and me. It can talk to the business without any problems. What's also happened, this is really important to understand, is that there has been a massive shift in the mindset of the consumer. Now, the consumer in this case, when I say consumer, means you and me, but it also means the corporate, the business organization. And that mental shift is paramount and has been paramount to the success of the B2B e-commerce business model. And what I mean by this mental shift is this. Today, most people have no problems whipping out a credit card and purchasing or paying for things online. Now, not only is this a true and valid statement for you and me, for the end user, for the individual, but it is also now something that is relevant and true for the commercial, corporate, or business entity as well. If I go back 15 years, many businesses were reluctant to let their staff use their credit cards for online transactions. Today in 2019, it is the norm. It is how we conduct business. Really important to understand. And what that means is that your customer, if it's a business customer, if you're in the B2B sector, they want you to go digital because they're ready for it. They're mentally ready for it as human beings. Psychologically, they are committed to the digital world. So we have to go digital. Now, there are other types of business models that I want to quickly touch on. So there is another model that is becoming more and more popular, and this model is actually a little bit controversial. It is a model called D2C, or direct to consumer. This model is controversial because in the direct to consumer model, where, for example, I own a manufacturing plant that makes these pens, and I decide that I'm not going to sell to the business customer anymore, I'm not going to go B2B, rather, I'm going to sell to you, direct to the end user, to the consumer. What I'm doing is I am cutting out the middleman. These models can work really well, but as you can see, there's a lot of controversy because all of a sudden we've got manufacturing businesses that are cutting out the middleman, that affect other businesses, and that are going direct to consumer. Now, there are challenges with the direct to consumer model. It is not an easy model to implement for various reasons. One of them being the fact that if you decide to go direct to consumer, what do you do with your business customers? How does that decision to go direct to consumer affect your business customer? That's a topic for another day, and we can have a discussion around how you handle that. But that is a question that you have to ask yourself if you decide that you want to go direct to consumer, and at the moment you're in B2B, as an example. Now, direct to consumer is different to business to consumer. And the differentiator here is that in the direct to consumer model, the business that goes direct is the manufacturer. That is the business that produces the product, the widget, the pen, the chair, the whatever. And traditionally, they had a business to consumer model. And so that takes us to model number 4. So we've spoken about business to consumer, business to business, direct to consumer. There is another model that I want to share with you, and that is the business to consumer model. Now you might be thinking, what the hell is that? Okay, so business to consumer model in the e-commerce, digital commerce realm refers to a business that does business with another business, but also does business with the end consumer. Now, again, this is a topic I don't want to go in too in depth with because I could create a whole video just on this model itself, but I'll give you an example of a B2B to C model. Uber. We've all heard of Uber. Uber is a B2B digital commerce platform. It enables and helps people who own cars set up their own mini business in the Uber environment. Those people, those individuals, transact with the consumer. But what also happens is that the consumer also transacts and also engages with the initial business, that is Uber themselves. So as a consumer, you will engage with the Uber driver, but you will also engage with Uber. And the way you do that is by engaging with the driver using the Uber platform. So in essence, Uber, as an example, has become an enabler, enabling people to start up their own little businesses, and has also enabled the consumer, the end user, to connect with the drivers. And of course, there's other things that Uber has done in terms of a B2B model itself. They facilitate invoicing, they facilitate the taking of payments, they pay their drivers, and at the same time, from a business to consumer model, Uber enables the consumer or the customer, the user, to pay for those services and to know with full confidence that there is some sort of a structure, some sort of a security framework around all of this to ensure that this driver has met the requirements to be here. So that's just one example of a B2B to C model. There are many more, and they are quite powerful, but they're very challenging to implement. In fact, I'd have to say probably the B2B to C is one of the hardest models to really get right. Because if you get it wrong, you end up pissing off your business customer, or you end up pissing off your end consumer, and the whole thing can just go up in smoke and it just can collapse. Everyone's going to turn around and say, hey, that was just a stupid idea. So in a nutshell, when we're talking about what is an e-commerce business, we're not just talking about a business that sells pens. We're talking about a business that facilitates transactions between businesses to businesses, both directions. We're talking about a business where money does not have to be exchanged. We're talking about a business where you can take a manufacturer that goes direct to the consumer. Or we're talking about a model where the business facilitates business to consumer transactions on behalf of their customer. It's very powerful stuff. Now, I wanted to add something else here. This question of, well, what is an e-commerce or digital commerce business? I'm going to put a challenge out there. And the challenge is this. I challenge you to find a business for which we could not develop a digital commerce business model. I have yet to find a business where we couldn't develop an e-commerce or digital commerce business model. And that's some powerful stuff. It's powerful because what this mentality or mindset does is it takes this box of traditional thinking and it gets rid of it because it doesn't exist. You can use this stuff, this technology at our disposal to really transform any organization in any industry. One of the biggest successes that I've had is Adrian's business. Adrian is a really good friend of mine. He owns a dry cleaning business. We have turned that into an e-commerce powerhouse. And the reason I say powerhouse is because in Australia, his business is still the only one that uses proper e-commerce or digital commerce business methodology. And what it's done for his organization is revolutionary. He's making a lot more money. His processes are more streamlined. He's getting a lot more work done as a business owner itself, and the business has grown significantly. You wouldn't think dry cleaning, what the hell has that got to do with e-commerce? But that's what I mean. This box that we often live in as business owners, get rid of it. Think laterally. So an e-commerce business is basically any business that can enable the facilitation of a transaction between the business and a customer. That's it. You can fill in the blanks from there. It could be in any industry, doing anything, selling anything, producing anything, providing any type of service, and be of any size. Closing comments. E-commerce is here to stay. E-commerce, digital commerce is not going to go away. In fact, probably for the last 15 years or so globally, e-commerce, the value of e-commerce transactions has been growing every single year. So the question I have for you is this. Are you an e-commerce business? Are you ready for this? Because this is what is expected by the new generation coming through. Those people born in the year 2019 today, as in 19 in the year 2019, they're the future consumer. They're your future customer. In 15 years' time, those people will be getting into middle to senior management roles in organizations. They're the future business owners. They expect this. Shoot, I expect this right now for most businesses. So have a think about this. Have a think about how this applies to your situation. If you have any comments, any feedback, anything at all, post them down below. Let me know. Happy to always have a conversation. And lastly, bit of self-promotion marketing. If you want someone to help you with your e-commerce operation, talk to me. Talk to us. Visit malekso.com.au. We provide consulting services and we also provide e-commerce training solutions. Thank you for watching this video. Share it, like it, forward it, talk about this, and hope to see you, or hopefully you'll see me in many future videos to come. Thanks for watching.